So I thought getting old came in stages. You know, first you start watching CBS, then you get into the $4 menu at Denny's, and then years down the road, you buy a Buick. But that's not how it happened for me. There were no warning signs. One minute I was watching MTV, and the next I had the longest strand of gray hair ever growing from my right testicle. I have cats. So one day when I was paying close attention to my special region, I see what I believe to be cat hair hanging down there, and I go to knock it off, and nothing. And then I start to tug, and still nothing. And after a few moments, I realize that this mysterious gray hair is indeed growing from inside of my body. I was 32 with aging balls. I had no framework for being an old gay. I lived in Los Angeles at the time. You can't get old in Los Angeles. As a matter of fact, I think it's against the law. And forget being old, gay, and black. Statistically, between high blood pressure, diabetes, and the police, making it to the point of having gray balls essentially made me a unicorn. Still, I went into a tailspin. I was single. How was I supposed to present gray balls to someone new? Someone who didn't already know me and know that I still had energy and health and still listened to hip hop. And I didn't know what to do and I was unsettled, so I did what came naturally. I began dating a 19-year-old. Now, I don't know if I thought I could extract his youth into my body, but I quickly learned that dating someone who was born after the Thriller album was released was a bad idea. His name was Greg, and we met in the most romantic way. I commented on his profile pic and said he was really cute. Then he commented back on my pic and told me that I was cute. And then I sent a picture of myself in my underwear, and then he sent me a picture of his penis. It was so cute. And that night, we talked what felt like forever, like 17 minutes or so. And we decided to exchange instant message screen names, and that's how it began. At the time, I was a marketing executive, and Greg was a clerk at GameStop. And he'd come home every night and type to me about how he needed more shifts and how all of his coworkers were dweebs. And then I'd tell him about my job, and he never really got it, but he listened, or at least watched on the screen. And then when we got tired, we'd drift to sleep with him telling me something like, "I wish I was there with you." And then I write back, "Yeah, what would you do?" And then for 6 minutes, I pretend to be turned on by whatever he was typing, and it would all end in some sort of digital climax. And this courtship went on forever, like an eternity, 2 weeks or so. So then we decided to do the drive-by. You know, where you don't commit to an actual date, but you want to make sure that the pics are real and the person's who they really say they are. So we decided to meet at his job. I wore a hat that he would recognize me by, and he wore his certain sneakers, so I would know it was him. So I show up at GameStop and walk the aisles. He walks past me, we look, and we just nod. That was it. So we decided to have a real date, one where we actually talk. So we went to the movies to see one of those Wayans Brothers films, the one that I would never see with somebody my own age, and it was sold out, so we had to wait for a 10:30 screening. So on the way across the parking lot to Applebee's, Greg takes out his phone to call his mother. He was gonna miss curfew. My 19-year-old date still lived at home and had a curfew. I wanted to run, but I was in too deep and I didn't want to hurt his feelings, so we went ahead to dinner. He ordered the tenders and a milkshake. Now, up until that point, I had been trying to make sense of the relationship, but watching a 19-year-old happily eat chicken tenders, I had to face certain truths. To make matters worse, the restaurant was packed. And luckily, Greg and I had gotten a booth pretty quickly. And out of nowhere, these two kids crash our booth, and they just sit there and bombard Greg with questions. They were friends of his who were still in high school. And they wanted to know all about college. What were the classes like? What was his dorm like? He didn't have one. And if he was dating a lot of girls. And I was invisible for a few minutes. Then after a few moments, Greg realizes that he's being rude, and he looks over and says, "Hey guys, this is Phill, my uncle." I immediately found a therapist. Still, even with the help of a mental health professional, I had trouble finding balance. I went from 19-year-old Greg to dating men who had grayer balls than me. So I switched all my age search filters on all the sites, Adam for Adam and the rest, from 18 to 40 to 41 to 65. And it made me feel worse. There were only like 2.5 pages of men when you up the age. Where was everybody? Were they partnering? Were they dying? Could old men just not afford the internet? It just seemed like you aged out of the community. You could go from watching MTV to watching PBS. But where did you go after you left the bars? Last week, I was on vacation and I went to the hotel gym and I got on the treadmill. And I had eaten tons of ribs and I was feeling guilty, so I wanted to walk it off. I pressed start on the machine, and in big, bold, pixelated red letters, "What's your age?" pops up on the screen, and I freeze. My birthday was a couple of weeks ago, and I hadn't made a big fuss about it, so it almost felt like it didn't even happen. And as I'm standing there frozen on the treadmill, it starts beeping, and this question is flashing on the screen. What's your age? What's your age? What's your age? And I take a deep breath, and I type 41. I didn't disappear. Now, there's hair everywhere, gray or otherwise, but I'm still here. And I even found another unicorn and married him. And I'm not so afraid that everyone is disappearing into some sort of black hole anymore, but I'm aware that at a certain point, we just start to fade away. You don't see us, we're invisible. But I think they're still here, and maybe they're just like me and my hubby, at home on the couch, watching House Hunters. And that's not so bad. Thank you.